Hello again and welcome back to our course on Excel 2019 Advanced. In this and the next section, we're going to look at a couple of different types of chart that are very often used in financial applications. Having said that, these two types of charts are very different indeed, and in fact, the one that we're going to look at in this section, the Sparkline, was introduced quite recently. It came in Excel 2010. And Sparklines are unlike any other type of Excel chart. Amongst the main differences are that Sparklines are not actually charts in the same way that area charts and column charts are. These are tiny little charts, and each chart fits into a worksheet cell. Now, in fitting into a cell, a Sparkline can have other cell content in the cell as well. But the key thing about Sparklines is that they are simple visual indicators. Now, we're looking at a page here from Yahoo Finance. Obviously, this will be out of date by the time you come to look at it, but you've got some tiny little charts there at the top. And very often in sources of financial information, these tiny little charts are used to show the overall trend of something. So let's take a look at how we can use Sparklines in Excel 2019. So in order to demonstrate Sparklines, I'm going to go back to the Team Sales 2015 data and the commission sheet. And I'm going to draw in some Sparklines to show how each team member's commission has progressed over the course of 2015. I'm going to put the Sparklines in column B. So let me just open up a spare column. And then on the Insert tab, to the right of the Charts area, we have a Sparklines group. And there are actually three types of Sparkline: line, column, and win-loss. Let's start with line. Now that brings up the Create Sparklines dialog, and we basically have two selections to make. The first selection is for the data that we want to represent in the Sparkline. Now in this case, that's going to be the data in C4 to Q8. And where do we want the Sparklines to be placed? Well, we want them to go in B4 to B8 and click OK. And there are our Sparklines. Now, if we look at Andy Carruthers' Sparkline, that gives you pretty much the same message you get if you work methodically through the 12 months of commission that he's had. And that is that overall, his performance during the year had deteriorated. It was a little bit up and down, but overall, the tendency is downwards. In fact, the team in general aren't doing so well. Maybe Jeff Hayes, not quite so bad, but overall there isn't an improvement showing. So that's an example of the clear visual representation you can get using Sparklines. For Team B, I'm going to use another type of Sparkline. I'm going to use a column Sparkline. And you may have noticed just now when I inserted the Sparkline, Excel assumed that the range that I had selected was the destination. So let me just select the destination for the Team B Sparklines. So that's going to be B11 to B15. I'm now going to click on Column. And notice that the location of the Sparklines is correctly set by Excel. So I just need to choose the data, which is going to be C11 to Q15. And click on OK. And now I have a column style of Sparkline for each member of Team B. Now there is a third style of Sparkline, the win-loss Sparkline, and we're actually going to cover that as part of exercise 9. Now, while it's not mandatory for Sparklines to be in groups such as these, they very often are. And if you imagine a situation where you had inserted, say, 20 or 30 Sparklines, if you want to change the formatting, so for example, you could change a Sparkline style, it would be pretty tedious to go through and do that to 20 or 30 separate Sparklines. So if I try to select a Sparkline, for example, Andy's Sparkline, When I select it, it automatically selects the other sparklines in the group, and by default, the group is the group that was created when it was inserted. It is possible to ungroup sparklines, and when you've got one or more sparklines selected, you have a Sparkline Tools ribbon at the top and a Design tab. And at the right end of the group, there is an Ungroup Sparklines option. So I could ungroup Andy, and that essentially removes Andy from the group he was just in. Let me just put him back again. If I want to ungroup all of the members of the group, you just need to select the whole group and click on Ungroup. And now each of those is a separate sparkline, and I can format them separately. So for instance, I could choose a completely different style for each one of the sparklines if I wanted to. Let's look at one or two other features on the Design tab. There is a Show group, and in the Show group you can select certain entities to show on your sparkline. So for instance, you can check markers, and on the line style of the sparkline you can see those little markers. So I might want to put in the high point, the low point, maybe the first and last points as well. If instead of the lines I selected the columns and selected high point, what happens is the highest columns get a different color. Now let me switch the high point off here and let me concentrate for a moment on the Team B scores. What I want to do is go back to the group and click on Axis. And just explain that at this moment, the heights of those columns are set for individual members of the team. So for instance, Scott's are scaled according to Scott's overall performance, Laura Steele's are scaled to her overall performance, and so on. Those column heights are not in some way related to the performance of the whole group. Now if you look at the drop-down button on the Axis button, you'll notice that in the middle section, the vertical axis minimum option value is automatic for each sparkline. That's what's setting the sparkline so that each min and max block size is according to the individual member of the team. If I wanted to set them to be the same for all sparklines, those sparklines would also indicate to me not only how individual team members' performances changed over the year, but also how they compare to each other. So let me change both of those to same for all sparklines. Now what we can see, for example, is that Laura Owen's blocks are generally speaking a lot higher than, say, Eric Parkinson's are. And Laura Steele, particularly in earlier parts of the year, her performance was significantly worse than, say, Laura Owen's. So with this, not only can we visualize the performance over the year, but the relative overall performance of the team. Just a couple of final points on sparklines. One of them is that on the left of the Sparkline Tools Design tab, you have an Edit Data button. And that brings up the Edit Sparklines dialog so that you can change the data range or the location range of the sparkline. And at the right-hand end of the group, you have a clear option as well. So you can clear selected sparklines or clear selected sparkline groups. And the very final point here is that a sparkline can refer to data not only in rows but also in a column. That's it on sparklines. I will see you in the next section.